Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the first episode in 2016 of Pro Bono Institute's Pro Bono Happy Hour. I'm David Lipscomb, Director of Strategic Communications for PBI. In case this is your first time listening, the Pro Bono Happy Hour is our series of podcasts in which we highlight Law Firm Pro Bono Challenge signatories and Law Firm Pro Bono project members. This week, we talked to Scottie Brown, Pro Bono Administrator at Hunton and Williams. Scottie gave us some background on the firm's Pro Bono program, its neighborhood offices, which it uses to reach communities with high Pro Bono needs, its Pro Bono Fellowship program, and she talked about the firm's 100% Pro Bono participation rate. We hope you're comfortable wherever you may be, whether that's mid-commute, on your lunch break, or simply working at your desk, perhaps writing some New Year's resolutions for yourself or maybe your Pro Bono program. We hope you enjoy the interview. Hi, Scottie. Thanks for joining us on the Pro Bono Happy Hour. We really appreciate you taking some time to talk to us today. Why don't we get started with you telling us a little bit about yourself and your position at Hunton and Williams, as well as the firm's Pro Bono program.
Thanks, David. I have been in the position as the Pro Bono Administrator at Hunton and Williams for about 5 years, and I came here hoping to I wanted to go into the nonprofit world, and ended up back in the legal industry, which was where I needed to be, and came to Hunton and Williams really to assist our lawyers take the administrative burden off of them in finding pro bono projects for our lawyers at Hunton and Williams. We have 100% participation, which a lot of people scratch their head at and wonder how we've done that, and that is because of the structure we have with our pro bono program and the office structure, and with our executive committee's leadership and our managing partners' leadership, we've been able to put a structure in place that's made us successful with that. Our pro bono program is about 2/3 dedicated to low-income individuals that are referred to us through legal service organizations, and then about 1/3 of our pro bono practice is for nonprofits. And kind of the big things that we have really implemented as a firm are our 2 neighborhood offices and our fellowship program here at the firm.
That's great. I think you may have stolen my notebook because you've hit on a few things that we want to talk about. But let me just start just looking at your position, which is, a non-attorney position. But we find folks that, coordinate pro bono often end up, becoming some of the most powerful or most well-known people in the firm, because pro bono tends to touch everybody, and particularly at a firm like yours where you have 100% participation, everybody probably knows who you are. So what's it like being in that role and in dealing with attorneys from the non-attorney perspective?
From the non-attorney perspective, it allows me to take work off of the plate of our attorneys, which I really enjoy, but it also gives me a little bit of more flexibility with my time. If a lawyer was in this position, they might not be able to do all of the things that I can dedicate my time to, with making more relationship building with the legal service providers, and also just the travel that's needed in my position. I do go to many of the offices throughout the year and meet with the different lawyers in the different offices, and also with the different legal service providers in each of the cities where we're located. And I really enjoy it. I love working with lawyers, and you're right, it's something where my position is kind of known throughout the firm, but that's also because of working with the partner, George Hetrick, who is our firm-wide pro bono partner, and he has quite a name in the firm, so it's a blessing to work for him as well and with him. But from a non-attorney perspective, I'm able to make the process as easy as possible for our lawyers in terms of the intake process, finding the cases, doing the things that they might not want to do. And I'm not sure if they would do pro bono if there wasn't a non-attorney person in this position.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's great to be able to support the attorneys that way, and obviously, like you said, 100% participation, being able to have that support system is very crucial, and I think we'll get into that a little bit later. But let's talk a little bit about the actual practice, the pro bono practice, and we've heard that a lot of your work is based on helping low-income individuals and things like that, and that's really sort of like the bread and butter work that we hear about, and is really sort of the core of what pro bono is all about. So, how do you decide what kinds of things to take on, and are there any challenges in doing that? Considering that you're doing that instead of maybe more high-profile things or things that tend to grab more headlines and get more attention?
As a firm, we made the decision to really support the local legal aid organizations, but we do allow our lawyers to pick and choose what they would like to do. So if a lawyer wants to try something high-profile, that's wonderful. They can run with it. But what we've really found is that the legal aid organizations are who really have the biggest needs, if you will. They have a harder time placing cases with the big firms because the big firms often want to do the headline-grabbing cases. We've decided as a firm that we would like to support the local legal aid organizations. We do the bread and butter work because that's what we think is the right thing to do for the legal aid organizations in our local communities, but we want to also make many of our lawyers happy by doing some of the big policy work so we can get some headline-grabbing cases.
Well, let me jump a little bit to something that you touched on, and you said you really wanted to support the local legal aid organizations, and we know that you all have pioneered sort of the neighborhood office. So getting these offices that are in places where the need is great, and I understand that's been going on for something like 25 years. How do you staff those offices? How do you operate them, keep them going? Are they sort of self-sustaining in that the need is always there? So, as long as you can find folks to staff them, they kind of keep going. How does that work?
We have an office in Churchill in Richmond, Virginia, and then we also have an office on the campus of the Legal Aid Justice Center in Charlottesville, Virginia, that we partner with the University of Virginia to staff cases there. Our office here in Richmond, in Churchill, is staffed by, we have a full-time coordinator who is just a staff person who places the cases in the Churchill office. And then we also staff that office with a pro bono fellow. It's a 2-year position where that person comes in and they take cases through the office. We get a lot of referrals from Central Virginia Legal Aid and from the Legal Aid Justice Center. For our Churchill office, we essentially are taking people who are just above the poverty guidelines, who can't get legal aid at CVLAS or LAJC, and so they can come to our Churchill office. But we also take anyone who is in the Richmond, Virginia area, whether they're in one of the surrounding counties or in the city, and we offer them a consult. The office, we do family law cases. We do uncontested divorces in those cases, guardianships, and that's pretty much and landlord-tenant work in our Churchill office. We get walk-ins, but it's mostly people who hear about the office, know about the office, and call. It has turned into something where we do have a steady flow of cases that come from the legal aid organizations in Richmond. But it's also something where from just different avenues in the legal community in Richmond, people have learned about it and will refer cases to the Churchill office. Our Charlottesville office is a little different in that we don't have a large office in Charlottesville to support it. I mean, and let me also make this clear, our Churchill office is fully staffed by the fellow, but the cases are also referred out to the Hunton and Williams Richmond lawyers. And we have about 200 lawyers in Richmond, and I would say we have about 50 active Churchill volunteers who take a divorce or a landlord-tenant case on a regular basis for our Churchill office. We have a full-time associate. It's not one of our pro bono fellows. We have a full-time associate in the Charlottesville office who takes custody, family law. She actually does a lot of custody work and other family law cases, landlord-tenant, anything that the Legal Aid Justice Center also refers to our neighborhood office in Charlottesville. And we then also partner with about 10 UVA students every year, and they will assist us with the cases in Charlottesville as well. But it is what what we end up doing there is have a team of UVA students with the pro bono associate who then also works with lawyers in our Richmond office and some of our lawyers in D.C. And we fulfill a need that way. And it's a unique experience for our lawyers because it's that we just by way of having these office locations in other parts of town, and it also we found that many of the people who are coming to the Churchill and Charlottesville offices for appointments simply feel more comfortable. It's right on the bus. They're right on the bus lines. They feel more comfortable coming into that location than they do coming downtown. And so it's really been a neat experience for our lawyers. We had an office in our Atlanta location, and we've recently closed that down because we've learned that what we could do is essentially have a virtual neighborhood office in our Atlanta office rather than a neighborhood office.
Wow, that's very interesting, and I actually that's an interesting proactive approach to sort of meeting people where they are. I heard you say that sometimes people feel more comfortable maybe going to one of the other offices instead of coming downtown. So it's great that you all provide that, a safe space where people will be encouraged to come if they have a legal issue. So I think that's great. You mentioned that the fellows staff these offices. Can you tell us more about the fellowship program? I understand this is a 2-year fellowship that's for recent law school graduates. How do you find these folks, and what kind of work do you have them doing? Do you have them doing things other than staffing these neighborhood offices? What's this fellowship all about?
The fellowship is, we have 2 of them, a 2-year program, and they can be recent law school grads. The vast majority have been, but we've had a couple who have clerked for federal judges. We've also had some who have been in the nonprofit world or even doing legal aid internships before they start with us. The whole purpose of the program is to have to provide a different kind of experience for a recent law grad who wants to go into the public service sector, but it also gives them a little bit of a structure of the law firm as well. All of our fellows have gone on after being with the firm to do different kinds of public interest work after their fellowship, but it's a broad range, which has been really interesting for us to see where they've gone. But our fellows are in Richmond and in our Atlanta office. As I mentioned before, we had an Atlanta neighborhood office that we have actually just changed this year. And the fellows spend about 70% of their time with legal aid cases, or it's a little... So it's a little hard to describe. Our Richmond fellow spends about 70% of her time with Central Virginia Legal Aid and the Legal Aid Justice Center, and about 30% of her time taking walk-ins and consults through our Churchill neighborhood office. Our Atlanta fellow goes to several of the different legal aids in the Atlanta area, and then also spends time in the Atlanta office working with the Atlanta lawyers on pro bono projects. So they really provide a service to the legal aid organizations, obviously to their clients, but we also have them as a resource for our lawyers in their pro bono work, and our lawyers can ask them questions. They can serve as mentors to our lawyers who might not feel comfortable taking on pro bono cases that are outside of their casework, their regular casework, and it's been a neat program to see develop. We're on, I believe, the first fellow was hired at Hunton and Williams in 1998, and they're on, like I said, a 2-year rotation. And to see where they've gone afterwards has been interesting. It's good to hear
Something that, and actually I didn't think about was, you have a fellow do a 2-year rotation, and now they have certain skills and certain knowledge that they can pass on to other attorneys that might be looking to get into pro bono, or maybe they're afraid of getting into pro bono because they don't want to do something outside of their area of expertise. So I imagine that's very helpful in helping sustain the pro bono program and keep it keep it as a robust program, which brings us to the 100% participation. How do you even hit that one time, let alone hit it multiple years? How do you get from a point of maybe even starting a pro bono program to a point where everyone in the firm is participating?
I will say that once we did it once, we felt the pressure to continue to do it again.
Right. And, yeah, I imagine you never want to go back down to 99, right? You know.
That's right. Once we got there, we had to keep it up there. But the amazing thing to see is now that it's so a part of what we do, and it's so a part of our culture, is that when we start tracking this at the beginning of our fiscal year, by the end of the first couple of months, over 80% of our lawyers have participated in pro bono just in the first 2 months of the fiscal year. So that really leaves us with a solid 10 months to look at kind of how we're going to get the other 20% involved, which is a good feeling and makes my job a lot easier. But we do take a team approach to our pro bono cases. If we have a lawyer who doesn't feel comfortable taking something on, we'll find a project just specifically to their needs. And that's the beauty of having so many legal service providers that we can work with, is that if we need a real estate project, we can find a real estate project for a nonprofit. And so we really have tailored the program to our lawyers' needs and interests. It does also help that they're not limited as to what they can do. They can take on any project that they would like to take on, and we have certain lawyers who are very passionate about certain nonprofits, and they will reach out to them and ask what their legal needs may be. So we're not strict in terms of what lawyers do and have to do for their pro bono project. That being said, we do follow PBI's rules very strictly in terms of what we count as pro bono. But once we've had the system in place, and because we have the call from our executive committee that everyone must do pro bono, and I need to clarify, it's not mandatory here, but it's definitely strongly encouraged. But when we received that call in 2008, our lawyers really understood that it was a part of what they were supposed to be doing here at the firm. And with that policy in place, we've been able to reach it it hasn't been difficult to reach every year once we did it once. And there are a couple people who we know we have to spend a little extra time with at the end of the year and talk to them about it, but it's not an issue. It's more of just something where they realize it's time to do their pro bono project. And it's nice that everyone has one for the most part.
Well, that's amazing to hear. I mean, it's good to have that momentum, obviously, because then you're not starting from scratch every year. If you can, get to March or April and you've already got 80% of your attorneys there, you can really focus resources on trying to get the other folks involved. What are some strategies that you use to get that, last 20% involved? Are there some typical things that, kind of work every time, and maybe that gets the first 10 or 15%, or is it really just sort of individualized, or I should say, is it varied from year to year, where some years you have folks that get right on board once you go, knock on their door, or there are people who, hold out for, maybe wait until the end of the year. What are the ways that you get those folks, that 20% involved?
Well, one thing I definitely should note is that because of the way that we're structured, we have office committees. Every single one of our offices in the U.S. has a pro bono committee, and the committees are made up of not only some of our most active pro bono volunteers, but also of it's broken down a bit by team, and we want to make sure each team is represented that's in that office on the pro bono committee. And so because we are able to individualize it through those local committees, and knowing kind of which lawyers aren't comfortable doing certain pro bono projects, and also which lawyers want to team up with other lawyers on it. So that does make it a more personalized approach. It makes it a little bit more local too. We are able to, when we bring in new associates and new lawyers who might have come from a firm that does not do as much pro bono, it's pretty easy for us to get them plugged into a project by teaming them with other lawyers. And so if we have someone who's working on an immigration case, we'll have a new associate or a new lawyer shadow, and whether it's do a review of some of their documents or just take a piece of the case and help, that's one way that we've really been able to get everyone involved. I cannot say that all of our lawyers do over 20 hours of pro bono. I can just say that all of our lawyers do something every single year. The vast majority of our lawyers do more than 15 hours of pro bono a year, but it really is it's a team approach to get these lawyers to do it every year. And it does take some creativity and really trying to find out what they're interested in. We've had partners who have children who have special needs. We've gone out to organizations that might need help. That's how we've gotten those lawyers involved in pro bono. I'm trying to think of some other kind of creative things we've done to get people involved. But we've also had lawyers who have come in who have really wanted to work with veterans. We've got a very robust firm-wide veterans program, and as long as we can get them trained and set up with a matter, we're set to go for the year. It's a targeted approach, and that's one way where I can actually say having a non-attorney person involved is very important, because I can't think of someone who's billing hours who would have enough time to consider and think about how to get everyone involved in pro bono. I will say we've had some naysayers who aren't passionate about pro bono, and once they've taken on a case, it's never been an issue in the following year, and that's been wonderful to see as well. The second they do it, they feel good about it, and it's kind of, there's an infectious feel to that, which is wonderful.
Well, that's great. I mean, it sounds like this is a fantastic pro bono program, and what I'm hearing, and I think PBI, we really support this. That there are a lot of entry points to pro bono there. So if one particular thing is just not your cup of tea, there are tons of other ways that you can get involved, and I can certainly see how that would help you reach the 100% mark every year. We look forward to seeing you hit 100% for many years to come, and we wish you the best of luck with all of that. Scottie, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us, and we really appreciate you sharing this insight.
Thank you so much, David.
Again, that was Scottie Brown of Hunton and Williams. Thank you again to Scottie for spending some time with us. To listen to more podcasts in this series or learn about additional pro bono resources, visit www.probonoinst.org/podcast. If you're interested in having your firm featured on the Pro Bono Happy Hour, please email us at probono@probonoinst.org. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Pro Bono Happy Hour.